Yeah, good. I see the screen on full screen, so that's good.
Yes.
Voila.
Got it. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining this session on rainwater harvesting and flood protection. I hope everybody can hear me. I see a few faces, so please nod if you do. Great. My name is Sabrina, and I'll be your moderator for this session. I'm project manager for the MENA region at NWP, the Netherlands Water Partnership. Lisanne, can you... I don't see the PowerPoint anymore.
I'm sharing.
Fitting it. So we'll go to the third slide. And for all of you, we would like to ask you to help us make this a smooth session. So pin the window, like I just did, with the PowerPoint to get it full screen. Send your questions to us via the chat box. And for the speakers who will give a presentation, please self time to stay on track. Next slide, please, Lisanne. The goals for this session are strengthening the cooperation on flood protection, flood management, and rainwater harvesting between the Netherlands and Morocco. We'd love to share groundbreaking solutions, innovative solutions, and knowledge exchange on rainwater harvesting and flood protection. And the next slide. The program. But before going through the program, we would like to thank the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands to make the session possible, the Partners for Water program, and many thanks to the organizers of the Global Green Forum, AS exhibitions. The Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands and NWP are the organizers of this session, and we have our own booths where you can visit them, the Embassy, and us, NWP as well. So if you have any further questions after this session, about the topics discussed today, about the organizations presented today, please don't hesitate to connect with us. The contact details of the speakers will be shown in the first slides of their presentation and or the last slide, the Q&A slide. And let's talk about today's topic, which is flood protection and rainwater harvesting. Floods have large economic, environmental, and social impacts, and emergency flood situations often require immediate and adequate action to prevent the flooding of valuable objects and areas, or to mitigate the consequences of flooding. Preparing for these situations in advance can avoid the negative impacts of flood, and expertise is required on how to prepare and how to act. Also this year, Morocco has experienced heavy rains in recent weeks after a long period of drought. In early January, the inclement weather caused several buildings to collapse in Casablanca, and this month, again, the country suffered from heavy rainfall. During this session, we go into the experience of a very interesting city in Morocco, the eco-city of Zenata, and we will go into possible solutions, like how temporary flood barriers can be used before the floods, the use of high-capacity pumps during emergency situations, and innovations and long-term solutions after water calamity. So the first topic of today is the eco-city of Zenata. It's a sustainable ecological answer to the housing shortage in Casablanca, and it's the first African eco-city to be awarded with the eco-city label. Ms. Nour Houda al-HAMMOUMI will start the session with a presentation on this. Furthermore, we'll focus on emergency flood protection before, during, and after the flood. 3 companies from the Netherlands are present in today's session, and they will present solutions that can contribute to minimalizing the damaging effects on floods. These are Boxbarrier, Mr. Raymond HOFER. He will present on their effective temporary flood defense system. The second speaker will be Martijn KLEINE from BBA Pumps, a leading manufacturer for over 60 years of experience in mobile pumps and piping systems. And last but not least, Mr. Rasoul MIKKELSEN from Royal Eikelkamp, on, amongst others, how to reduce social, economic, environmental impacts of flood, on monitoring early warning systems, rainwater harvesting, and managed aquifer recharge. After all the presentations, there will be plenty of time for Q&A, and please ask your questions in the chat box, which is also called Q&A. Next slide, please, Lisanne. As mentioned just now, the first speaker of today is Ms. Nour Houda HAMMOUMI. Nour is an experienced senior technical advisor with demonstrated history of working in the international trade and development industry, skilled in water and energy efficiency, sustainable development, environmental awareness, and since 2019, project manager, sustainable development at EcoCity Zenata. The EcoCity of Zanata is located in the northeast of the Moroccan metropolis of Casablanca. The new city includes a total of 470 hectares of green spaces. Water retention basins for the wet season promote groundwater recharge and afforestation on the site, and these naturally irrigated parks leading to the sea are thus designed as ecological corridors. Ms. Nour, I would love to hear more about Zenata, and please take the floor. Lisanne, could you go to the next slide of Ms. Nour's presentation?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you for responding to the audience to this invitation. A special thank you also for the Embassy of the Netherlands for shedding lights on one of the most beautiful sustainable development projects in Morocco, Zenata Ecological City. Today, I would have the pleasure to present to you EcoCity of Zenata and maybe highlight some of its achievements, particularly in relation to the collection and use of rainwater. Next, please. Part of the national initiative Cities Without Slums, the Ecological City of Zenata project was presented to His Majesty King of Morocco, Mohammed VI, in 2013. The presentation was held in the presence of the French former president at the time because the project enjoys great support from the French Development Agency. Next, please. So what is so special about this project? Why Ecological City, and how does it stand out from other cities, projects in Morocco and elsewhere? Next, please. Zenata is first and foremost a strategic location in the heart of a region of more than 8 million inhabitants, the region of Casablanca. Next. Ideally located between the administrative and economic capitals of Morocco, Zenata covers an area of 1,830 hectares with a coastal frontage of more than 5 kilometers. It benefits from a large infrastructure easement, in particular the highway rail, the coastal network, and aims to engulf the existing pressure on the city of Casablanca. Next, please. Zenata is also several constraints that have been transformed into opportunities. In particular, floodplains, high voltage lines that cross the territory, more than 9,000 households living in slums, more than 650 illegal beach houses, and almost 250 illegal industries present in the territory. Aware of these challenges, the idea was of developing a public utility project intended primarily for the Moroccan middle class and creating an industrial zone in line with standards, preserving more than 4,000 jobs, relocating households on site, and all of this included in a sustainable and innovative master plan. Next, please. To sum up, and with before that, okay. Yes. So this sustainable master plan aimed to develop and strengthen the following 4 areas. First of all, the management of the elements, especially air, with fresh air directly through natural corridors that aim to lower temperature by 2 to 3 degrees during summers and regulate humidity during winters. And water, with gravity flow and mixed canal systems to divert rain surface water through natural reservoirs. Then we have also imagined a city with a human scale, reproducing living units, empowering the ancestral conception of Moroccan ancient Medinas, where each living unit offers all the necessary equipment for daily life in terms of education, health, shopping, and leisure. It's also accessibility and soft mobility, offering a large scope of collective transportation modes, as well as bicycle and pedestrian walkways linking all the life units. And finally, it's a forest within the city, with more than 30% of total land areas of park and greenery conceived to promote biodiversity, representing 19 square meters per inhabitants, higher than the WHO standards, and in comparison, for example, with a city as Casablanca, who offers only 1.5 square meter per inhabitant. Next, please. To sum up with some key figures, Zenata is a public utility project aiming to rebalance Greater Casablanca region by creating a new urban center based on social cohesion, economic development, and environmental protection, developing more than 100,000 jobs for a population in long term of 300,000 inhabitants, distinguished also by 4 high-value-added areas: the health cluster, the education cluster, retail center, starting with IKEA, for example, and logistics center. Next, please. It's also a sustainable project entrusted by major stakeholders. As I mentioned, we are supported financially by AFD, by the French Development Agency, with EU, also with the IEB. We have also a lot of national and international partners, such as Serway, such as AME, for example. With the healthcare, we have developed conventions with Saudi German Hospital. They will have their first experience in Morocco with Zenata. For the retail, I've also listed IKEA, but we have also Société from Portugal, for example, and main real estate partners that accompany us on establishing this new vision of a city in Zenata. Next, please. So what has been achieved to date? As you can see on this timeline, a lot have been done to establish and to implement Zenata on site, but maybe a video is worth 1,000 words. So for the next slide, please, if you can play the video. Thank you.
Nour, would we be able to share a link to this beautiful video after the presentation so people can visit the video themselves, as there's no sound now?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Okay. As I've said, all of these works that you have been seeing were carried out according to sustainability aspects, since Zenata is first and foremost an ecological city. Next, please. Indeed, Zenata, before that? Thank you. Indeed, Zenata has created its own ecological city referential, which has defined its 6 principles, the principles that you see in here: naturality, eco-development, flexibility, optimization, diversity, and proximity. These principles were crossed with the pillars of sustainable development to finally produce 16 themes, the themes that you see in that are also classified within environmental, territorial, and social and economic aspects. These themes are today consolidated in a Charter of Sustainable Development Objectives of Zenata and shared with all of Zenata partners and service providers. Next, please.
Sabrina.
Seems there's a technical issue.
Yes, my PC is not working, so please somebody else take over the screen sharing.
Okay. Which slide were we on?
My PowerPoint is not working. I don't know. I think the second one after the video.
I'm working on it. Do you see the presentation now?
Yeah.
Great. Nour, please.
Okay, so we're back. Next, please. Again. Thank you. So it's also a commitment in line with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Through an SDG mapping, Zenata was able to verify its compliance and its levers of action to strengthen this consistency on an international scale. Next, please. Moreover, aware of its exceptional character, Zenata has embarked on developing its own eco-city label, developed on the sidelines of COP22 that was held in Morocco, and applicable to any operation of a new city or a new district. This label is now marketed by Serway and is initially intended for Africa and Latin America. Next, please. Again, to sum up Zenata experiment, many key success factors can be listed. First of all, it's strong, effective leadership. Then we have the land use planning, efficiency in financing, and inclusive citizen participation. Next, please. Coming to the subject, to the main subject of this session, the rainwater management in Zenata was a major concern since the city was located in a floodplain area and required special attention during the conception and construction work. Next, please. As shown on this slide, topography of Zenata, the area has a flat, undulating topography characterized by alternation lines of Riddle and Talvex parallel to the coast. The altitude are between level 0 and 60 on the east side, and there are no surface hydrographic networks, so rainwater trickles down to dayas present in low points and seeping in. Several depressions are present in Zenata, where water can be accumulated for long periods. As a result, it was decided to study the feasibility of setting up rainwater management system that makes it possible to control water runoff even for occurrences greater than the decade. Next, please. Surface stormwater flows were favorated by the road according to the preferential natural path. Improvements such as ditches and channels will be provided when the water level at a level of the road is high and cannot be accepted. Natural depressions with great storage potential will be used as retention basins, and they will be designed to limit downstream flows and optimize the cost of linear structures. Next, please. So what we did was a flow modeling. Next one. And identifying direction of road flows in order to, next please, in order to establish this drainage management system for rainwater drainage. The variant adopted consists of setting up a stormwater buffer system with two basins that you see on top of the picture. You have HA and HB. Collectors by creating dry basins, retention basins located on the coastal strip, located downstream of the coastal road, as well as the second retention basin within the HA basin. Next, please. As you must have followed, Zenata has experienced, as everywhere in Morocco, a particularly intense rainy season this year. And we were able to test the resistance of our system, which demonstrated great efficiency when large cities as Casablanca were gained by floods. As you can see in this photo that has been taken 2 weeks ago, the HA basin on either side of the axis leading to the sea has perfectly fulfilled its function on collecting, flood clogging, and infiltration of rainwater. We have included these basins in a coastal sport course of Zenata, sheltering parts of the jogging courses which are borrowed in dry periods. Next, please. So as a summary of planning principles, we have adopted two-dimensional modeling of flows in the sewage network and on the surface. We have developed consistency of road design with sanitation principles. We have a gradual implementation of retention basins, and finally, landscape integration of retention basins developing in submersible parks with dry basins. Next, please. Nevertheless, some constraints still occur, such as availability of land, because we are also in urban areas as well known for rare urban availability of land. Proximity to use, so we have had also to take into consideration the costs of water transfer from the place of production to the place of use. Regularity of the resources for the guarantee of service. Project financing modalities, common public mandates supported by the River Basin Agency, for example, governance operation of infrastructure, and this has led us to develop a new reflection on mobilization and use at a level of residences. Next, please. So what we are now conducting is a study. We are about to finish up this study. It's a study of collection and use of rainwater in residential facilities and collective buildings in Zenata Eco-City. We have first started with the identification and quantitative assessment of substitutable uses for drinking water, then develop typical rainwater harvesting solutions adapted to the characteristics of residential buildings in Morocco, then constructed a storage simulation and sizing tool to help us dimension and properly adapt the facilities to the use here in Morocco. Then an economic relevance of study was made for rainwater harvesting solutions depending on the type of residential and collective use buildings. And now we are closing up this mission with the definition of standard specifications for the traceability and operation of an installation. Of course, we will be happy to share the results as well as the implementation of the recommendations of the study as soon as possible. Thank you very much. This was for Zenata. I will be very glad to answer your questions.
Thank you, Nour, for this interesting presentation. I don't believe, as I heard, I cannot see it anymore as I'm sharing the screen, that there are any questions, but please let me know if there are. If not, we'll go to the second speaker of today, and it's the first speaker on the part of flood protection. Our first speaker on flood protection is Raymond. He's managing director of Boxbarrier, and the Boxbarrier is a very effective temporary flood defense system which can be used to temporarily heighten the crest of a dike or to make a temporary dam on flat terrain. The concept of the Boxbarrier is characterized by easiness because it makes use of its opponent. It retains water with water. After the presentation of Raymond, we'll have time for questions. So, Raymond, please take the floor.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our presentation of Boxbarrier. Boxbarrier was developed about 6 years ago by the Royal BAM Group, which is the biggest construction company here in the Netherlands, in cooperation with the Technical University of Delft, VP Delta, and the Water Board of Delft. And the first question why Boxbarrier was originally developed was how to raise the quays of rivers and waters up to 50 centimeters really quick. That's how Boxbarrier became a design, which is a proven concept at this moment. It protects water versus water, as Sabrina mentioned. If you can go to our next slide, please. Here you see 4 images of Boxbarrier. On the top left-hand side, you see a Boxbarrier upside down. The black strip you see on the bottom of the box is about 3 centimeters high, which is a strip made out of foam. Once the box is placed and filled with water, the foam will press onto the ground, and this is how the Boxbarrier holds the water. On the top right-hand side, you see the black piece on the side of the box. This is what we call the coupling piece, and this is how the boxes are connected together. And the connecting piece also has rubber foam on the bottom. On the same picture, or on any picture where you see the lid on top, we have a different lid. It's a loose item. And this is where you fill the box with the water. And we use it also if you need to walk over, so you can use it as a bridge. On the bottom left-hand side, you see how the boxes are connected together. This is obviously in a straight line, but the boxes can be turned within the coupling piece about 2 degrees, but we can also have a different coupling piece. We can go up to 90 degrees to create an angle. On the bottom right-hand side, you see the Boxbarrier, how it is once you're not in use. They're nestable, so they're very easy to deploy. And the lids are stackable, so that kind of makes it handy if you need to move it to areas where you need to build the protection. Next slide, please. Like I mentioned, on the bottom left-hand side, to raise the quays, this was the originally design of the question that was asked to the Royal BAM Group by the Water Board of Delft. How can we raise the quays of rivers or dikes really quick? So that's the originally design of Boxbarriers. That's the way we do it. But we've been developing the Boxbarrier, and there are obviously more capabilities of doing and how to use Boxbarrier. On the top left-hand side, you see how we can redirect flows by building a circle around areas you need to reprotect. and you can manage the box barrier, so you can let the water go to lower areas or areas where you want the water instead where you don't want the water. On the bottom hand right hand side, you see how we can protect infrastructure and obviously most important, vital infrastructure. To give you an estimation on how big the box barrier is, the box barrier is about 1 meter wide and 60 centimeters high. There's 285 liters in each box barrier. So once they're connected to each other, it creates a lot of weight and a lot of strength. And to give you an estimation, about 50 sandbags is one box barrier. So it gives you an idea just to place one box barrier or 50 sandbags. It saves a lot of time. Next slide, please. Here you see the box barrier in use in the city of Zwijndrecht, here in the southern part of the Netherlands. On the far hand left side, you see the river, which has high and low tides, and the water comes up pretty much every year in Zwijndrecht. They have about 1.8 kilometers of box barriers in use in the city. So they're building the box barriers in advance with an early forecasting system, or early warning system in some countries it's called. And they place the box barriers before the houses, and it goes around the corner, as you can see, and we're protecting the vital infrastructure or infrastructure in the city of Zwijndrecht. Next slide, please. Well, here you see it at night. You see the water comes up higher and higher to give you an idea that box barrier is not an innovation anymore, but it's a proven concept. And obviously, this is a great showcase for us, the city of Zwijndrecht, where we use it every year. The next and last slide, please. Well, box barrier benefits, in short, it's very comprehensive temporary flood defense system. It's not a permanent. I know everybody is looking for permanent solutions, and obviously that is the best way to develop cities, but sometimes, you cannot develop in cities that exist, or you still need temporary flood defense systems. It's a very compact storage. We can place almost 580 meters in a 40-foot container. As you can see on the top left, it's easy to transport then. The deployment is very easy to do. The city of Zwijndrecht places 1.8 kilometers with 6 people within an hour, to give you an idea how quick that goes. The products we used are very robust and very durable. It's very hard to break them. We threw it off a 13-high story here in the Netherlands, and it still didn't break. We drove a forklift into the system. It still didn't break. So it's vandalism proof. The box barrier is reusable. It's zero maintenance, and it's very low cost effective. This is our short presentation of how to use the box barrier before the floods, and obviously the product is developed to minimize damages to infrastructure. Thank you for your time, and this was our presentation.
Thank you, Raymond. I cannot see if there are any questions yet. I do have a question for you. Can you tell me a bit more about where it is used at the moment, in which countries you already use it and have used it?
Well, obviously we use it here in the Netherlands. We have almost 4.6 kilometers deployed here in the Netherlands in lower areas where they use it. We just sold a big contract to the Greece and Macedonia area. We used it in the UK, Belgium, Germany, Spain. And currently we are working on 2 projects in Vancouver and in the United States. So we're starting to get global.
Sounds really good. And how long will it take to deploy the barriers?
Like I mentioned, the city of Zwijndrecht has about 1.8 kilometers, and they do it with 6 people within an hour. During our testing, it takes about 3 people to build 100 meters. And that's for people who never worked with the product, but that's how easy it is to deploy. So about 100 meters with 3 people who never worked with it, people who have been working with it, you can go up to 1 kilometer within an hour with, I think, around 4 or 5 people.
Thanks, Raymond. I see there is a hand raised from Sam Casablanca, as I cannot see it as I'm sharing the screen. Maybe someone else, Miriam or Lisanne, can read the question out loud, and Raymond can answer.
I invited Sam to also join you in the session, because I cannot see his question directly.
I'm not hearing him.
No.
Me neither. Let me...
Sam, can you type your question in the chat? Because I just see your hand raised, but I cannot see the question, and we can answer it that way.
I'll try to invite as well. See if Sam... No, awaiting response.
Maybe we can do the question after the presentation, Sabrina?
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Yes. Let's continue.
All right. We'll continue to the next slide. Go to Martijn. Martijn KLEINE from BBA Pumps. Well, first of all, thank you for being here as well. Martijn will talk on behalf of BBA Pumps, and they supply and support products all over the world. BBA Pumps and accessories are developed for use in a variety of applications, amongst others, construction, flood control, sewer bypassing, mine dewatering, and much more. Martijn, the floor is yours.
Martijn, you're on mute still. Please, can you unmute? Martijn, we cannot hear you for the moment. Let me check if you're still on mute. Martijn, I'm not sure if you can hear me. We cannot hear you.
I tried to log in again. I hope everybody can hear me now.
Yes.
That's perfect.
That's better. So thank you for having me. That's how I started. So I think nobody could hear me initially. Thank you for having me. Shortest trip to Morocco I ever made. So glad to do it on this way. If you can go to the next slide, I'll be happy to introduce a bit more on BBA, the BBA product line, and what it can do for flood control.
It's soon we lost the presentation.
I don't see the presentation, but I assume everybody else can. If you can go to the next slide. BBA has a dedication to build the world's best portable pump solutions, offering our customers lowest cost of ownership. So what we do is we provide highest uptime, reliability in the product, and highest performance. If you go to the next slide. We do that with a 4 years limited warranty backup. Although my French is really limited, we do have support in 12 languages globally, amongst which is French. So for the people in Morocco, we can also have the French backup in our pump systems, as well as in our support team. If you go to the next slide. There was one before that, I believe, or at least there should be one, telling a bit about our branches. We are a Dutch manufacturer, so we have a setup in the Netherlands, an assembly line, sales offices. We have a product facility in the Czech Republic, production facility in the Czech Republic, and sales support offices of our own in the United States, in Poland, Belgium, and the Netherlands. We are supported internationally by a global distributor network. I am looking at a slide showing our pump system. So if that's what everybody is seeing, and I can continue with that. It is a fully autonomous pump, what we supply, either diesel-driven or electrically driven. In case of a diesel-driven pump, it contains an engine, a fuel tank, and a pump. Basically you can set it up, start it, and it runs. It has a control panel, which you can regulate the pump with, but also with float systems. So in case of emergency setups, basically it can switch on and switch off automatically. So with high water level, it switches on, pumps the basin empty, and when the water level is low again, it switches off automatically. All protected by a robust hot dip galvanized canopy. So the frame it has, it basically means there's no risk of any galvanization, of any corrosion. So well protected with bumper bars. So it's free from corrosion as well as vandalism, especially if you have a soundproof version with doors. It's silent and vandalism free. Lightweight. On the other end, so it's easy to transport, easy to maneuver, can be installed on a trailer, and it's compact. So in case of transportation on a trailer, you can supply a lot of these pumps in one time, especially handy for emergency setup when more pumps are needed. If you go to the next slide, please. Inside of this canopy, there is an auto prime pump, how we call it. Basically, it means you connect hoses to it. As soon as you start the engine, it pulls a vacuum, so it pulls in the water automatically. And when the pump is full of water, it pumps away the water from a basin or from the street. A lineup from small 3-inch pumps up to 28-inch pumps, which basically is the size of a 20-foot container. These pumps are available as a solid handling pump. It can also handle dirty water, but also high head. So in case of more pressure is required, these pumps can provide it as well. Mechanically priming system means that there's no risk of any contamination of water by oil or whatsoever. Modular and in very compact design. You can go to the next slide. To touch the subject of this afternoon, I want to show some recent projects, or at least a recent project which is also close to the Zenata setup, I believe. The Overdiepse polder. It's a setup in the southern part of the Netherlands, where they lowered the dikes to have room for the water, how they call it. Next slide shows how the past situation was. The Netherlands, situated in the southern part, especially there, the water level is pretty high. The water level is pretty high. Countryside is pretty low. There's a delta of 3 major European rivers, where in the past we had quite a lot of water flooding risks. Especially in 95, 250,000 people had to be evacuated from an area when the rivers were pretty high again. So that's where the plan for rooms for the river came about. If you go to the next slide, we show how it was situated. It was done by the Dutch government. They determined 30 water storage facilities in the Netherlands, one of which is over Diepse Polder. And that's an area where they can store 9 million cubic meters of water as a temporary storage. With that storage, they can lower the overall river water level with 27 centimeters, and basically that is sufficient to protect 2 major cities in the southern part of the Netherlands from flooding. With that, they create a safe environment for more than 4 million people. As a part of this plan, they made an arrangement with the farmers in that area, where the land had to be dry again as soon as possible. On the next slide, we can see an installation drawing of that. They wanted to, besides the normal flow of water, they used temporary pump solutions to evacuate that area from water as fast as possible. So on this drawing, you can see 4 of our pumps situated with all piping. On the next slide, you see where how it's being used. 4 pumps, fully autonomous again, but also fast in setup and installation. These 4 pumps create 20,000 cubic meters per hour of pumping capacity. With that, the government can assure the farmers in that area that the area will be dry again within 6 weeks from the flooding. At first, the water level equalizes with the river, and the final pumping capacity will provide the drying up of that area in a faster way. So fully autonomous pull-up frames, so these pumps can be transported easily by a truck, but also easily deployable. Setup of this whole system with these 4 pumps and all piping can be done within a day. And for this area, within that time frame, that is sufficient. Next slide is an intermediate one. The setup as shown in southern part of the Netherlands is a large one, but there are also smaller versions available. This is one deployed in Marrakesh. Radima has a number of BBA pumps. In this case, it is an electrically driven pump, 4-inch pump, with a capacity of up to 190 cubic meters per hour. Also trailer mounted, so it can be pulled with a normal truck or van. Electronically driven, so it's extremely silent, especially in urban areas. That is of essence. And in this case, it's also connected to the sewage system, so there could be some solids in it, trash and solids, and that can also be handled by this pump. On the next slide, there's another example of a similar pump, also deployed in Marrakesh. A slightly bigger one, the 6-inch pump, can handle almost 500 cubic meters per hour of water, but also solids handling again. And as you can see, it's connected to the sewage over here. So they have different applications of these pumps. In this case, diesel driven, so fully autonomous. Only fill it up with diesel, and it can be deployed. And the next slide shows an example of a similar pump. In this case, in Eastern Africa. So we see the applications throughout Africa with similar pumps where they all face flooding areas. Eastern Africa, especially. Very dry area, as you can also see on the soil. But when it rains, it comes down pretty rapidly. So having serious flooding in that area as well. So also there, UNDP is using our pumps to evacuate the water from that area. These are the smaller versions. The next one indeed is a 10-inch pump, slightly bigger. also installed on a hook lift frame, so can be handled with a truck. Advantage of this system is that it contains the pump, but as you can see, the whole frame is basically one piece. So the pump is installed on the frame, and it also contains all hoses and accessories for pumping. And next is an example of a flood relief system in the Czech Republic, 12-inch pumps on a trailer as well, more of an agricultural trailer setup. So as an advantage, it can also be customized towards the wishes of a specific country or a client group in this case. Bigger one is the next slide, 16-inch pump, diesel driven. Then you get towards a size where you need steel pipes or bigger pipes, which are hard to handle by hand. So on the right-hand side, you see a bit of a corroded part, which is a suction pipe. But instead of a big pipe, we can also connect it to a manifold on the left-hand side, where you can see 12-inch hoses or HDPE pipes, which you can carry with 2 persons. So still easily and rapidly for setup. Next slide is a last example of a larger setup, 28-inch pump on the left-hand side. So as said, it's almost a 20-foot container size. But with that, we can provide the complete setup for rapid response, also rapid transportation of the whole setup with hoses, pipes, manifolds, bends, etc. To deploy a flood relief system as fast as possible. In this case, installed on a hook lift frame, so you can pull it up onto a trailer or a truck autonomously again, so for rapid response. There was a quick overview of how we could use. Next slide is basically almost the end. Any questions from your end? I don't see any or don't hear any.
Sabrina?
Anyone with questions?
No, I do not see any questions in the Q&A or at this moment, so I think it's very clear.
Good. And thank you for your attention from my end. If any questions come up, then please contact us. Anyhow, there's also in the handout session you can find the brochure with some more information.
I'm not sure, I cannot hear Sabrina for the moment, but anyway, I want to thank you on behalf of Sabrina for the interesting presentation.
Thank you, Miriam.
We cannot hear you, Sabrina. Can you speak? Yeah. There's no voice. Zana, I think we lost Sabrina.
Yes, I believe so.
Since she's
Maybe.
on mute.
Yeah,
Sabrina,
yeah. But even when
Exactly.
she's unmuting herself, I think it's still
okay.
not working. So let us just take over really quickly. At the last moment, I could not hear Martijn. Martijn, were you? Did you finish your presentation and address the possible questions?
Yes, exactly, Lisanne. So there were no questions
Okay.
for the moment in the Q&A. And indeed, Martijn finished his presentation.
Great. Then let's move on to flood management after the flood.
I see that Sabrina sometimes is on mute and sometimes muted. Now you're on mute. But indeed, I think it's good if we can continue with Mr. Rasoul MIKKELSEN.
Okay, everyone, thank you very much. Thank you for the organizer and giving us the opportunity to speak in this session. And despite all this COVID and technical and all these issues, I will give a brief introduction to the Royal ICACAM. We have the honor this year to celebrate 110 years anniversary. We've been established in 1911, and today we're growing to a company with 170 people and actively at operations in 70 countries. Can we get this next slide? Yeah. I would like to spend a few minutes on the social and economic and environmental impacts of the floods. When I got this task, I just tried to Google, the impacts of the flood at the global level and at the continental level, and it seems actually every country in 2020 was affected by the flood, regardless the continent. But the level of impact is really different from country to country. And it seems that the most vulnerable country and vulnerable people affected most. So what I would like to try to address here is how we can build the resilience on the mitigation side and how we can, again, build a system that actually adapts to the flooding. And in this slide that we can see, actually by using the monitoring system, either we're talking about putting monitoring on the rivers or building weather stations and early warning and so on. We are today able to really store the data on cloud and analyze the data and actually warn the people before the flood happens. Well, can we avoid the flooding? No, we can't, but we can save a lot of lives if we are on time to get the opportunity to analyze the data. Royal ICACAM has all these digital solutions that we can really integrate it in different places. Are we talking about the surface water or weather station and monitor all the time and build a really early warning system. And this makes us really capable of avoiding, as I mentioned, the people lose their lives. Can I get the next slide? Well, the next question is, okay, now we have the flooding and there is a lot of water. And water is really scarce, especially in Morocco and other countries. We are seeing the scarcity of the water. And what we can do here is actually by building underground reservoir or underground water glass dam, we can actually discharge the water to the underground and make them safe there and use the later on. But most important is when the flooding is happening, we have to make some emergency cases. And here the water supply and sanitation is most important issue. And by doing that, what we can do here is really, again, by using some innovative solution, is really control and see how the water quality is, because this flooding water is really affected by sewage water, wastewater mixed together. And we cannot just discharge to the underground and say, well, let's just use it later on. So we have to have a kind of measurement and monitoring system here to see the quality of the water and even maybe to clean it before we discharge it to underground. Or we can really build a system that we can discharge the water to underground and keep it there, and again treat it and discharge it to the farming and or drinking water and whatever later on. The most important things again here is how we can monitor the quality of the water. Are we talking about the reservoir or the current water in the cities? So immediate response will be keep the water quality, control water quality, and then again discharge it as being also presented today by my colleagues to reservoir, and then we can later on use it later. So one of the huge impact on the flooding is not only on the cities but on the farming, and also farms that really suffer economically and socially when their farm is really affected by the flooding. Today, by collaborating again with other company in Netherlands, we are really able to discharge water from farming in a very short time to the other places and reservoirs. We be testing one of the solutions that actually we discharge a flooded football yard in the 45 minutes. So it is again here how we can build adaptation in this flooding cases, and also make sure that the people does not suffer economically and financially and socially. But before we do every solution or launch every solution in every country or Morocco, and even Morocco, we have to work very closely with the government and the entities and authorities, because the solution itself is not going to work on this ground before we have the alignment and coordination with the government, UN, and other players on the ground. I think this is really important. Secondly, I think if we would like to address the flood management and flood protection, we have to work collectively. I mean, and as also previous presentation, really look at the holistic and value chain of the flooding. And by doing collectively, I think, and I'm sure, 100% sure, that we really reduce the risk of the impact, both on social and economic impact on the people. And finally, the capacity building. I think it is extremely important we build the capacity of the authorities, the government, and key players on the ground to deal with the flood and flood management. This is really important because this is the first response coming from the authorities and the government. And by supporting them and building their capacity, I think that we are able to address this one. So what we trying to do today here is, and also my colleagues before, is really we have the solution deal with the flood and flood management protection, but the question is how we can work collectively, not just on the working silo. So we're really advocating for working cross-sector, work together, work with the government, work with the international organization, NGOs, civil societies, and everyone on the ground to make that the impact of flooding is as small as possible and save the lives and economic of the people. So we have the solutions, but I think my last wish to everyone is, well, let's work holistically and look at holistically in these issues and work together to solve some of these issues, which is not only Morocco and or continent issue. This is a global issue, and people every single year suffering. And by climate impact and change, it will be worse in the coming years, and we have to be prepared. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Rasoul, for your contributions. Are there any questions from the audience? I cannot see the hands raised because I'm sharing my screen. Maybe
I don't see any.
Somebody can inform me on the hands raised.
I don't see any. Do you hear me again?
And if not,
Yes, we can.
Yes, Sabrina, we can hear you. Yeah, but I assume that Lisanne cannot hear you. But we can.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
My apologies for not being able to moderate in between the previous two presentations, and I wanted to give you a proper introduction, Mr. Mikkelsen, Director for Strategic Business Development in Africa and Asia at Royal Eichelkamp. I would like to thank you for your interesting presentation right now. And I was wondering, you talked about the holistic approach and the importance of capacity building. Could you share an example with us how Royal Aquacamp has implemented this approach anywhere in the world? Can you give us an example?
You know, what we look at now is, because again, we will look at the whole the value chain, and again, on my previous colleagues presented on kind of adaptation and also mitigation part. What we are trying to do is actually building more and more alliances, because flood again is very complicated and complex case. As again mentioned, it's just pumping water. Then you have to have a strategy what we are going to do with this water to pump out. So we have to discharge it through some places. And when, again, discharge the water to, let's say, underground reservoir or surface reservoir, then we have to, the next level will be, okay, what we are going to do with the water. Are we using the farming or drinking water or whatever? Again, here, as I mentioned, the Dutch company, I know this, they have the technology to treat the water on the maybe third level of the flood. And again, by working together, and again, we integrate the solution that we will offer one-stop shop. And again, also, we also engage the researchers and universities. I wasn't Googling about the flooding and impact. There was almost 3 million documents on only flood impact. You know, they've been done a lot of researches. So again, integrated the research in our solutions, and I think this is win-win for everyone. And as I also mentioned again, I will emphasize again, underline again, we have to build the capacity of the government to deal with this issue. The equipment and solution is kind of empowering the government, but the capacity of the government is dealing with this, and the solution is out there. I mean, but we have to build the government capacity also to deal and coordinate with the government to deal with this kind of global issue.
Thank you, Rasoul. If there are no questions from the audience, and I'll check again, and I don't see any, we have time to answer questions on all three presentations that we've seen so far. So if you have any questions to the presenters of today, so that's Madame Nour, Mr. Raymond, Martijn, Rasoul, please let me know. And if not, I have some questions. To start with Nour, I'll just continue as I don't see any questions. Nour, are you still there? I do see you. I don't hear you. Let me ask the question. How does Zenata influence real estate projects in terms of integration of sustainability aspects? And maybe you can say something on the plan of Zenata on implementing rainwater management solutions in the near future as well, as we talk about the severe weather conditions and rainfall in Morocco. I wonder if you can say a bit more on those topics.
Sabrina, there are some technical issues, so Nour cannot hear us. Or we can ask her via chat, so then she can reply to that. And for you, we do not have video at this stage. So we have your picture, but we do not see you live. Yeah, there you are.
Here I am. If Nour cannot answer a question, I have a question for you, Martijn. Let me see. How rapidly, how quickly can you set up the pumps you presented in your presentation?
Yeah, so as mentioned, the one in the example of Overdiepse Polder in southern Netherlands, it took us a day to set up 4 of these units. For the smaller ones, also for Radema, for instance, in Marrakesh, Basically, it's driving up, connecting the hoses, and you're good to go. And that could be done within half an hour or an hour or so. So that's really rapid deployment.
And then you have local support in Morocco?
Yeah, we do partner up over there. We have a distributor for the African continent, but also local support in Morocco itself. So technical support as well as sales support.
And in Morocco and other places with support, maybe you provide the whole solution in that case?
Yeah. So we that's why we provide pump solutions. We see a lot of people or a lot of other companies in our own field supplying a pump only. We can supply the whole system with flexibility. So setting it up customized if needed. But it is the pump with the driver, so either a diesel engine or an electronically driven pump, with all hoses, with a frame if needed, with trailers when needed. So basically one supplier for the whole system.
And you heard all the other speakers today, of course. How do you imagine, or how do you prefer cooperation with those organizations, and of course with, for example, in Morocco, Eco-City of Zenata?
Yeah, well, like mentioned, if I see Eco-City of Zenata, that they developed a whole area to store, or to at least have the water storage. In this case, I believe that's close to water, but if there's a similar setup for another area where you want to get rid of that water, you can use these pumps. If I look towards Boxbarrier, that's a great solution to prevent some areas of flooding. But if they want to get rid of the water again, which is in front of the Boxbarrier, these pumps can be used as well. So then there are different applications to cooperate with all parties involved. And I think same for Royal Eikenkamp. I mean, yes, indeed, we can just pump away the water and get rid of it. But I think we have to look at it in a broader sense to also make good use of the water which we're pumping away. I mean, there are areas flooding, but other areas are facing shortage of water. Well, let's look at the broader picture instead of just looking at one small area only. And I think that's the good advantage of having various players in that field to look into the broader picture of it.
Thank you, Martijn. Rasoul, would you like to reply?
I'm fully agree with Martijn. And again, if we look at the kind of mitigation side and warning system, and if we know there will be a flooding coming, maybe it's to actually plan and in time deploy these pumps on site and make prepare. And it is all about to be prepared to the flooding and really avoid the major damages. As I mentioned, we cannot stop the flooding because this is a climate issue. There's a lot of issues related to this. But as much as we can reduce the impact, and I think it is win. So I think by planning, by warning systems, by making sure that there is a data that we can analyze and see what's going on, and I think we can integrate and also contact others that engage in this kind of response for the flooding. And I think again, going forward, it will be much more of this. And as I agree with the Martijn, and how we can use this water for more efficient way and not just discharge it out. So it will be the really challenge for everyone, and we have the solution. So we have to figure out how we're going to do this collectively.
Thank you, Rasoul. Raymond, would you like to share your response?
Well, the collaboration part, which both companies mentioned, is obviously the best solution. We are a product that stops water, but like everybody is mentioning, where is the overflow of water going to go, or how are you going to get rid of the water? We're not specialized in that, so we need other stakeholders to do those kind of things. Especially with the climate change, you have a lot of overflow in water, but you also have shortage of water. If we can redirect the water, or we can catch the water and you can create it to basins where you can use it in case of dryness. That's how you become more and more flexible with these types of projects. And that's the way I think you need to approach the market. Just not look at one end solution, but look at the total solution.
Thank you. Thank you so much for these inspiring words, all of you. I would like to try one more thing before I wrap up, and that's the video that didn't work during the presentation of Nour. So we tested it yesterday, and it worked when Nour shares her screen. So let's try it and see if we can watch the video. Nour, can you share your screen?
Okay, thank you, Sabrina. Earlier we have faced some small issues, technical issues. Maybe now we could replay the video. I will share my screen with you.
No, unfortunately, on this side, I do not have the sound.
No sound. The images are beautiful, though. Maybe, Nour, you can talk us through what we see. Beautiful images, Nour. Can you say something about what we've just seen? It seems your sound is not working. No. Maybe reboot. We'll wait for half a minute or something for Nour to come back. I must say I'm impressed by the images we've just seen, and beautiful to see it next to the presentation she gave. Hi Nour, there you are. Thank you.
Sabrina, can you hear me? Yes. Okay, finally. Well, thank you again. Thank you for the audience also to stay in this late to see the video. The video was mainly to tell people that there are ongoing construction work on Zenata. It's not an empty field anymore. We can see a lot of construction going on from our side, but also from the real estate partners that we have on site. You are all of you, but mostly people from Morocco for now, very welcome to come and visit us. And hopefully very soon we could also welcome you from abroad to come and visit Zenata and see all the construction work that is going on and all the facilities that we are trying to make available for the population here.
Thank you so much, Nour. Thank you for joining. And that's it for today's session. I would like to thank the organizers of the Global Green Forum again. Thank you, the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands and the Partners for Water program to make this all possible. Thank you for your contributions, and the audience, 125, thank you for joining in. Please don't hesitate to contact us about the presentations, about the speakers, about the solutions presented today. And please pass by our pavilion. We have the Netherlands Water Pavilion that's run by NWP. There is an energy pavilion from the Netherlands as well. And the Kingdom of the Netherlands, the embassy has its own pavilion. Booth, that's what I mean with the pavilion. So please pass by these booths in the upcoming days too. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them, and we would be delighted to see you and to connect with you. Thanks again. That's it for today. Thank you all. Bye-bye.